There is a lie whispered to every new student at Duel Academy that the school was built to be a training ground for the world's elite. But the island remembers the truth. Before the dorms, before the investors, they were already here. And when Pegasus returned to build his school, he did it for them. Pegasus made his deals, played the fool, let the investors carve their kingdom out of his island. He let them believe they had won because he was waiting for the one thing that he would never bargain away. The children. The ones he had broken and reshaped. The ones who bore the weight of his greatest sin. They weren't an afterthought. They weren't charity. This was their school. And the investors, for all their power, would not take it from them. They raged, they huffed and puffed, screaming that their children would never share the halls with these monsters. But their children, their legacies, depended on Duel Academy. So when Pegasus stood firm, they had no choice but to fold. When Pegasus granted the subjects their freedom, some didn't look back. But others found that the outside world had no place for them. And as they tried to make some sense out of what had happened to them, Pegasus came with an offer. A chance to hone their power on their own terms. And they accepted. Pegasus believed that they would grow to build connections with the other students. He was wrong. They remain apart. But he still has one more hope. The Duel Academy tournament. 4 of the 5 who returned to the island have chosen to participate. And if there is anything that Pegasus has learned from his budding partnership with the young Yugi Muto, it's that dueling has a way of forcing people to understand each other in ways that words never can. But they feel differently. They aren't here to make friends. They're here because they've been training. Quietly, methodically, relentlessly. The world is watching with hungry eyes. Some hope to recruit them, others to control them. But when they step out on that stage and the moment comes where their power is made visible, it won't be an appeal for empathy or acceptance. It will be a message to the world. They control their destinies now, and they are never going back. The truth is, these subjects have done a great job staying hidden even from me. Reports have come out from the island, but none seem to capture who or what they really are. Fortunately, I've managed to obtain fragments of their old files from Operation GX. The mandate was to mass-produce invokers by transfusing raw nexus into mortal veins, creating an army of soldiers who could summon spirits from the spirit world and wield their powers. Few survived. Fewer still reached full invocation. But among the survivors, something new emerged. More than human, but not quite invoker either. The researchers called them the Enhanced. Unable to summon from the spirit world, but forever touched by it. Lethal, unpredictable, too dangerous to control, too varied to define. And the first is Genetic Experiment 18, codename The Predator, civilian name Tyranno Kenzan. Objective: to infuse a human subject with nexus extracted from Saurian-class entities native to Jurassic World, a Dominion ecosystem located within the realm of Earth. Result: failure. Subject unable to reach invoker status. However, subject displays enhanced muscular density, superior reflexes, and heightened auditory and olfactory senses. Subject also exhibits low-grade regenerative capacity, capable of recovering from moderate injuries over time without medical intervention. Subject occasionally enters a berserker-like state marked by exponential increases in all traits. In this state, subject displays vertically dilated pupils and accelerated cellular regeneration, allowing for rapid recovery from severe injury. Researchers dubbed this the Predator Surge. Predator Surge cannot be reliably triggered under lab conditions. Attempts to induce this state using pain, sensory deprivation, and psychological stress yielded inconsistent results. Further testing required. Profile: subject of likely Samoan descent. Appeared in America via maritime stowaway following a violent domestic incident. Lived in urban slums, assuming leadership of a small youth gang. Subject acquired during a street sweep conducted by field agents. Subject displays high charisma and natural leadership skills. Subject staged multiple escape attempts, earning considerable loyalty from fellow subjects. Corrective measures proved ineffective. Control only re-established after punishment was redirected to subject's peers. Recommendation: subject exhibits habitual resistance to hierarchical control structures. Exercise extreme caution in all interpersonal engagements. Next we have Genetic Experiment 86. Codename: The Legend. Civilian name: Kagurazaka. Objective: to infuse a human subject with nexus extracted from humanoid class spirits residing in the magical citadel of Endymion, a structure of arcane scholarship founded by the Archmage Endymion during his campaigns across the realm of Earth. Result: failure. Subject unable to reach invoker status. However, subject developed superhuman intelligence across reasoning, memory, abstract thinking, and problem solving. It was theorized that subject's cognitive abilities could be useful across a range of critical domains. In particular, it was hypothesized that subject could achieve dominance in the game of duel monsters, a system increasingly relevant to political, economic, and military sectors. Subject was given weeks' worth of footage of matches from multiple top-ranking duelists across global circuits. Field agents then presented subject with the top-performing deck confiscated from then-regional champion Yugi Muto. Within 72 hours of receiving the deck, subject began exhibiting symptoms consistent with identity displacement, including first-person identification as Muto, vocal mimicry, and a rejection of their civilian name and prior history. All reorientation efforts have triggered acute stress responses. Profile: early records incomplete. Subject listed as a ward of the state with no known family. Recommendation: delusional identity does not impair function and may contribute to psychological equilibrium. Corrective measures should be postponed until clear evidence of mental decline. Next we have Genetic Experiment 07. Codename: The Savage. Civilian name: Taira Takayama. Objective: this was the first recorded trial involving the spirit-bound artifact known as the Amplifier, a device recovered via unknown means from the machine conversion factory in the realm of fire. Though this would later expand into trials related to the spirit Jinzo, this experiment focused solely on Amplifier, believed to be able to enhance the power of the mind to such a degree that it could alter reality with thought alone. It was theorized that if the subject desired invocation strongly enough, Amplifier would allow the subject to transmute their body into that of an invoker. Result: failure. Experiment abandoned during early stages. Researchers first attempted to test the amplifier's baseline capabilities by instructing the subject to will themselves to develop low-level extrasensory perception, also known as ESP. Subject was presented with a randomized duel monsters deck and told to predict the top card. Incorrect guesses triggered electrical feedback. It was theorized that under sufficient stress, survival instinct would sharpen the subject's desire to predict the correct card into genuine ESP. Instead, during a session marked by repeated shocks and mounting agitation, the subject suffered a psychological break and attempted to tear the amplifier free from their body. The device reacted to the subject's desire to escape, initiating a violent transformation that allowed them to tear free from their restraints, breach containment, and disappear into the surrounding jungle. Field agents tracked and recaptured them several days later. Since the incident, subject displays superhuman strength and senses. Subject also displays a range of behavioral abnormalities believed to stem from psychological trauma rather than structural brain damage. Abnormalities include fragmented phrases, diminished reasoning capacity, and quadrupedal movement resembling those of a primate. Subject displays an obsessive-compulsive fixation on drawing cards for hours at a time. Attempts to disrupt this behavior result in defensive posturing. Profile: Taira Takayama is the son of the late Baron Takayama, a minor noble from the Yangtze Dominion. Following accusations of tax embezzlement, the Baron was executed and his lands redistributed. Subject was taken into state custody following the purge of his house. Prior to experimentation, subject was compliant, articulate, and non-aggressive. Recommendation: subject is to remain under permanent containment. Sedative deployment authorized in the event of abnormal activity. Amplifier class equipment has been decommissioned. File has been flagged for internal review and instructional use regarding Nexus energy misapplication. Subject's physical strength and heightened senses led to a series of experiments that resulted in GX-18. However, subject exceeds all benchmarks set by GX-18. Comparative analysis during GX-18's Predator Surge remains untested. And lastly, we have Genetic Experiment 01. Codename: The Dreamer. Civilian name: Mokeo Motegi. Objective: this was the first human trial conducted under Operation GX. The purpose was exploratory, to determine whether Nexus could be successfully injected into a human host without immediate fatality. The chosen spirit was Moki Moki, an abnormal class entity from the realm of light. selected due to its minimal combat attributes and presumed low threat level. Result: success. Subject successfully invoked the Moki Moki King's spirit, summoning it to Midgard from the realm of light. Although the spirit has not reappeared, subject occasionally manifests its power by generating a psychic field that induces sleep in nearby personnel. These episodes trigger without warning, last several minutes, and remain beyond the subject's control. Researchers theorize that full invoker potential exists. Subject could be trained to control their power and summon other spirits, but further testing has consistently failed. Since the infusion, subject exhibits chronic lethargy and disengagement. Subject is unable to follow basic directions and routinely falls asleep mid-session. Subject often redirects conversation toward irrelevant or abstract observations, with a particular interest in cloud formations. Profile: civilian background unknown. All records either missing or removed prior to admission into Operation GX. Recommendation: further testing discontinued due to subject's lack of initiative or response to stimuli. Subject is not to be released under any circumstances. Sleep field activation is rare but high risk. All personnel entering containment must maintain active spirit barrier shielding. The perceived success of GX-01 led to an overestimation of model reliability. Researchers, anticipating a high rate of viability, accelerated testing protocols. Experiments 02 through 06 all resulted in subject death. So now you've met the monsters, the anomalies, the survivors. But there's still one more competitor. Samajima called in an elite instructor to coach the subjects, to help them control their powers and emotions. And that instructor is Professor Lyoside. Once, Agent Lyoside was the kingdom's sharpest mind in military intelligence. He served in the Great War alongside Samajima. While Samajima commanded armies as the face of the war effort, Lyoside ran covert networks, ending battles before they began. And then came the mission that broke him. Lyoside refused an order, became a conscientious objector. The kingdom took him prisoner and made an example of him. Years passed. It was Samajima, at that time still loyal to the throne, who secured his release, who finally pulled him from that cell. He returned a shell of a man. He walked into the forest, built a cabin, and never looked back, severing all connection to the outside world. But Lyoside wasn't hiding. He was waiting. And when Samajima finally appeared at the edge of the trees after all those years, neither of them said a word. They didn't have to. There was only one reason for him to come. Samajima was finally making his move against the kingdom. It was time to come back in. The mission was overwhelming in scope. 5 children, each volatile, dangerous. He had to teach them to control powers he himself barely understood. There was no standard protocol. What worked for one could be ruinous for another. The first week, he made no contact. He kept his distance, observing the dorm the children had claimed for themselves. Once, it was their prison. They turned it into a home. The big one, Tyra, was the first to sense him. That nose of his, enhanced beyond human limits, twitched the second Lyoside stepped into the underbrush. From that moment, he felt eyes on his back, waiting for him to make a wrong move. Mokeo emerged next. On warm days, he would shuffle outside and collapse on the grass. He lay there for hours in the sun, barely moving. Kagurazaka was puzzling. Every day, he would wander the forest, muttering to himself. With Tyra keeping watch, Lyoside never got close enough to make out much, just fragments, patterns. But the meaning emerged over time. Kagurazaka was observing the others, cataloging their habits and routines, and their duel monster strategies. Upon returning to the dorm, he would set up a table on the front lawn and play a game of duel monsters with himself. 2 decks, 2 fields. He played both sides at once, fast, fluid, like a human chess engine. The 4th subject never showed herself, not once in the entire week that he observed them. And then, there was Kenzan. He was the only one who traveled to the main campus. He attended classes with the other students and returned 3 times a day with meals for the rest. On the first day, Lyoside saw Tyra mutter to Kenzan in a low voice. Kenzan followed Tyra's gaze, turning to look directly at Lyoside. It was like a soldier giving a field report. Kenzan sometimes sat with Mokeo on the grass for hours, made sure he ate. He always fetched Kagurazaka when he was gone for too long. Kagurazaka always listened. Lyoside recognized the dynamic immediately. Kenzan wasn't the strongest, not the smartest, but they followed him. He was Lyoside's in. Classic infiltration. Identify the organic leader, gain their trust. It was dusk when Kenzan returned, dinner in hand. Lyosai was waiting for him at the edge of the forest. Kenzan stopped. "You've been watching us." "I have." Kenzan's jaw flexed. "You planning to report back to someone?" "No. I'm planning to stay, if you'll have me." "No thanks." Kenzan continued down the path. "Have you noticed that Kagurazaka replays the same move over and over again?" Kenzan stopped. "When he first sits down, he always preps with the same 5-card sequence. Dark Hole, Magician of Faith, Dark Hole, Monster Reborn, Destroyer Golem. The same moves that Yugi Muto used to defeat Diesel Kane in the Domino City Finals. So what? That sequence doesn't serve any mechanical purpose. It's not part of his duel simulations. It's a ritual. He's anchoring himself with a memory that isn't his, almost like he's getting into character. It suggests that deep down somewhere, he knows that he isn't Yugi, which means maybe there's still a way back. Taira's not stupid. He's overstimulated. His senses are too sharp. It's probably unbearable. We've got training for that. Meditation, sensory dampening. And Mokeo's muscles are going to atrophy. The only way to get him moving is to tie physical activity to something that he wants. Mokeo doesn't want anything. I can't imagine you can see the clouds much from beneath the trees. Have you been to the roof of the dorm? The angle looks just right. We could set up a ladder, have him climb it every day, and just wait until he hears about the view from the top of the school. What do you want anyway? What do you get from this? No BS. Lyosai turned, removed his jacket and undershirt, and revealed the real reason he had been chosen for this mission. The scars were quiet things, long, pale ridges that ran down his back, evidence of pain, long endured, never forgotten. He turned back around. "I know what it's like to be caged, beaten down until the only thing left is survival. I can't undo what's happened to you, but I can train you. And we can make damn well sure it doesn't happen again." He met Kenzan's eyes. Never again. Kenzan stood still for a long moment. Finally, he gave Lyosai a single nod and continued down the path. Tomorrow, they would begin.